after meeting the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, in late 2021, we met him, very impressed, and they had made Bitcoin legal tender. And then we came back and we thought, well, they'll probably just go down the path of shitcoins. And Stacy was like, you know what? I can't accept that. I can't accept it. This country deserves better. So she reached out and said, look, you've got to not do this and you can't do that. You've got to get this Bitcoin thing right. So they were like, wow, okay, come on back. So we went back and sat down with the president, and he invited us to essentially be policy advisors on Bitcoin in El Salvador. We decided to create the Bitcoin office. Stacy's heads up the Bitcoin office. We started the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, again, mostly through Stacy's efforts. And we just passed the Bitcoin bank law, which I must say, hello? Did we get lost?
No, I hear you.
Okay.
We suddenly.
The Bitcoin bank law, which again was primarily Stacy's effort. So that's been really the project for almost 4 years now. And I think we see the United States kind of following El Salvador, right? They want to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve and other stuff.
Yeah, and Stacy, as the director of El Salvador's National Bitcoin Office, you focused heavily on Bitcoin education, which all Bitcoiners will tell you is maybe the most important thing for adoption. We're seeing it time again. People don't believe in it, they do the work, and then all of a sudden they orange pill themselves. How big of a difference has that focus on education made in shaping the next generation of talent in El Salvador?
Well, it's my firm belief, and I've posted this several times on Twitter, is like, or X, whatever. It's education is our moat, right? People naturally want the quick, easy, fast path to the top. I'm finally seeing what we look like on the screen. Like, we had a pop, our screen popped different, and now I can see I'm kind of out of shot. Well, the education is our moat. It's hard work. It's really difficult to do. And again, just like early Bitcoin, there was no roadmap or template or like work that we could just, take from somewhere else that had already been done. We had to build it from scratch by hand.
Right.
And so we've been working on that for 4 years. We have like even down to 6-year-old children, 7-year-old children. We now have a workbook for a school book for 6 and 7-year-old children, 8-year-old children. So second and third grade, completely done, introduced into the schools in El Salvador, the public schools in El Salvador. We have a Bitcoin diploma program for high school students. But I started, the first thing I did was the Kubo Plus, which is a Bitcoin and Lightning devs program. And why I started that is 4 years ago with Jimmy Song. Let me roll back a little bit. So Max and I were in El Salvador, and we were trying to find a way to help, like how to help El Salvador. And the first thing we did was, we were early VC investors in, in the Bitcoin space, like Kraken, we had invested in like 2011 or 2012. And we have a high tolerance for risk, and we've been around for a long time, and we could give back. Let's start investing in startups here and bringing companies to El Salvador, bring Bitcoin companies to El Salvador. And, we always got asked like, well, what's the talent pool like there? Like, how many Bitcoin and Lightning devs do you have? And of course there were not that many, and there were mostly foreigners living there. And I really believed, and we had been talking about it on our podcast, Orange Pill podcast at that time, all the time, that Bitcoin would cause a renaissance somewhere. And we had talked about it on Keiser Report back in 2014, that, perfect money could cause a renaissance. It did in Florence, I believe. And I believe that Bitcoin could cause a renaissance somewhere. So I believed that something great would come for El Salvador, that the economy would transform, that it would boom. And this was before the gang war, which did transform everything beyond anything that I expected at that time when we first arrived in El Salvador, in such a positive way that, but from where we were at that time, I was thinking that, we need to train our Bitcoin and Lightning devs. And so I got Jimmy Song to come there. And, it was so much hard work because his programming Bitcoin course, it's very difficult to get in because he asks us one question and it's it shows how you think rather than your skills. And we interviewed something like 150 students and we got 7 in there. So I was a little bit like discouraged. I was thinking like this was going to be a difficult task, but we trained those first 7 students. And Jimmy said to me, like, if you can get 20 students trained up like I've just done for your students here in El Salvador, if you can get 20 more, then you're going to transform this economy. That's all it will take. And so then Jimmy was gone, he has his own life. And I was thinking, wow, I really have to I need 20 more students. So I started out thinking I need 20 more students. I met with this company called Fulgur, who are huge investors in the Bitcoin and Lightning space. They're a VC fund, and they got on board and wanted to help, with building out Kubo Plus. And so they were great partners and brought in Giacomo Zucco. And we now have 500 students that we've trained in El Salvador. Wow. So, it turned out to be better than I ever could have imagined. And so this is our moat because I think, countries are looking at Bitcoin and what they're only looking at one thing, right? They're looking at just Bitcoin. They're just looking at a strategic reserve. They're just looking at it in that sort of way. Whereas what El Salvador has is so deep and so profound and so, mindset. It's all about the mindset and about being Bitcoiners. Like you have a population of Bitcoiners there in a way that it just takes the time that it takes to train these hundreds of people, to train, to have that shift in mindset across the whole population of what it means to be like sovereign and independent, truly, right? It's a bit deeper than most people realize. A lot of people still have just the fun of like number go up, and that is fun. Right. One can't deny that, but it's there's so much more in a deep Renaissance like level that that's where El Salvador is, and I think therefore it's going to be hard for any country to catch up because because El Salvador has President Bukele, and he is a 1 in 500 year type leader, but the population as well, not only do they support him because he is a great leader, but because he brought them freedom, not only with Bitcoin, but freedom from all that terror of the gangs, right? So you have a population that is so optimistic and so like, say 1960s America, where they thought like we could land a man on the moon, we could do anything, right? Like the future belongs to us after World War II, like everything is going to be American. So we have that same sort of enthusiasm for the future and that optimism for their future across the entire population that you just don't see anywhere else in the world. There's more of a, like, we're heading into the fourth turning and it's getting horrible and like every man for himself, where you don't have that in El Salvador. You have a mindset of sovereignty and independence and good times coming, right? Strong men create good times.
Yeah. Yeah. And Max, I wonder from your perspective, as both of you are so integral in writing this new blueprint for El Salvador of how nations should start adopting Bitcoin into their monetary policies, how far away do you think we are from seeing other countries follow suit, specifically the United States? Are we still years away from that? Is it maybe a lot closer than you think or than we think? What are your thoughts?
Well, having President Bukele as president of Bitcoin country is helpful because he's the most popular leader in the region. He's the most popular leader in dozens of countries. When they ask them who's your favorite
Mm.
leader, they'll say President Bukele. And President Bukele, of course, is associated with Bitcoin. So that opens the doors. And, we recently met up with the folks in Panama, and they are now moving toward what I call the axis of Bitcoin, right? Central American companies and countries that are coming into Bitcoin. We had a meeting with the financial minister of Pakistan a few weeks ago with the president. And the news came out shortly thereafter that they're now exploring Bitcoin strategic reserve. So every country in the world, every sovereign wealth fund in the world, and sovereign wealth funds, the biggest ones are the biggest part of a few of these countries. They're now exploring Bitcoin or investing in Bitcoin.
Mm.
So it is now finding its way into the sovereign level. So Bitcoin is definitely embedded in the sovereign level, and they are increasing their allocation, just like Larry Fink, I believe, allocation went from 1% to 5%. Now he's talking 15%
Mm.
on portfolios. So the hedge funds, the managed money world, they're upping their allocations. The sovereigns are getting involved. Sovereign wealth funds are getting involved. So it's already on the sovereign level. It's already working its way in. We believe we have a blueprint for this that was developed in El Salvador. The legal blueprint, the communications, how to manage it. So that's something that we've talked to Panama about. Like, here are the steps we took to get to El Salvador level. We think El Salvador is the first country out of the fourth turning, in large part because you've got President Bukele plus Bitcoin. So we're already in the good times phase, and
Mm.
other countries are entering the bad times. In the United States, of course, they are very involved with Bitcoin thanks to the orange pilling efforts of Bitcoin Magazine in the Trump administration and family. So they are definitely on the Bitcoin board, and so they are obviously a big player. They're probably the biggest of the G7 that's involved in Bitcoin, and I think you're going to see some news coming out of the Mid East. It makes perfect sense. They've got all that energy that they would want to also be in Bitcoin. We get some news still coming out from that region, and so it's already happening on the sovereign level.
That's amazing. And when you two aren't orange pilling, countries, you're also helping orange pill the world with your very appropriately named Orange Pill podcast that we touched on a little bit earlier, which has become an absolute hub for Bitcoiners worldwide. I would love to talk about that a little bit. And for those people that aren't yet familiar with it, Stacy, can you tell us a little bit about the vibe of the show and why you decided to create it in the first place?